Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist, Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show.
Hey everybody, welcome back into the second half of our conversation with Phil here on some, some financial tweaks that could matter, some small steps that could provide big impact. We did the first half last week on Thursday. I believe we dropped that out. We're dropping this one. Yep. Typically we do Thursdays, but this one's dropping on Tuesday because it's Thanksgiving week. So happy Thanksgiving in 2 days for everybody. So hopefully you're going to have a great time with family and stuff yourself and go Lions. Go Lions.
That's right. So, yeah, they actually have a chance this year. We'll see.
They're very good. They are the third best team in the NFL right now. So
I know.
This far into the season.
I keep having my doubts and, not wanting to get things built up because it's
no.
Dan Campbell's years of that disappointment, but it seems like they've got it figured out this year. So.
Yeah, Dan Campbell's the man, buddy. I mean, he's really done a number there in the couple of years he's been there. So he's building it the right way. So we won't jinx him. But
that's right. Lions. Don't blame us.
But that's right. Don't blame us. So we're going to pick up the second half of this conversation. Phil, we got 5 more I want to go through on these small steps that could provide some big impact. So we went through some stuff like, cash and cleaning up policies and old 401ks and stuff like that. So I want to pick up with number 6 here on my list, which is tax efficiency of our investment. So we'll just jump in and get rocking and rolling since we talked quite a bit about Thanksgiving on the last episode and a little bit on this one as well. But analyzing the tax efficiency of your investments, obviously as a CPA, right? This is something that not every financial professional out there that people are working with look at things from the tax side. They may do like a cursory tax look, right? Yep. But I think it's certainly worth having a deeper dive into this. And if you are having like a professional that just does financial advice and then you have a CPA separate, making sure that I think you're having that team, having that team work together is important. Or just have it all in one, like you. But how important obviously is this arena here?
Oh, it's huge. It's in taxes are one of those areas that I think people often overlook, especially as it gets into retirement. Or they look at it in a certain way, thinking they're tax efficient by doing tax loss harvesting, and not to diminish the value of that. There is definite value. But I mean, that's one small piece, right? I mean, it can have some value over time. Absolutely. Don't not tax loss harvest if you have substantial assets in that taxable bucket, non-qualified money.
Right.
And manage the taxes there. So make sure you're investing the right type of assets. If you have bonds in there generating ordinary interest, probably not the right investment for that type of an account. You want something that's going to maybe generate more tax efficient income, long-term capital gains, qualified dividends, those type of investments.
So bonds and things of like, can those lead to a higher tax bill?
It can, in that it generates interest, and interest is ordinary income. It gets taxed at whatever your tax bracket is. Versus your long-term capital gains, qualified dividends are going to be taxed at 0 potentially if you're in the lower bracket. Could be 15, could be 20, as your income gets into much higher brackets. But I mean, if you're in the 15% capital gains bracket, you could be in the 22, 24, et cetera, 32% bracket for ordinary income. So there could be some efficiencies in where you have that type of income being earned, if you have it in the correct type of an account, that taxable account, versus having something that's generating ordinary income.
Well, if we are thinking of income as the most important piece of the financial puzzle, I mean, taxes has to be second, I would think, because it can make or break so much stuff.
Right. And we talked the last time on mutual funds versus ETFs and talked a little bit about the taxes. I mean, that plays into this too. Mutual funds are generally not as tax efficient as an ETF is. So, I mean, those are what a lot of people look at from taxes, but then you have to step back and take it even a bigger picture of it to look at, okay, now the money positioned in my 3 buckets, taxable, tax deferred, or tax free, what does that look like? Do I have the right mix there, especially as you age and start to look at required minimum distributions? Don't wait to get there and realize, oh, no, I've got too much in tax deferred. Take a look in that long-term vision now and say, okay, well, if I do nothing, this is what that looks like in 5, 10, 15 years down the road, whatever it is for you. Is that going to be this tax tidal wave, I call it, coming your way? let's try to reposition and get a better balance today. So
yeah, so we'll bring our Thanksgiving theme back in, right? So you don't want too much mashed potatoes and not enough collard greens.
Yep.
Now I showed my southernness there with the collard greens. Didn't
the collard greens. That's right. That's right. Look down the road, because those mashed potatoes, they have a lot more carbs than the collard greens.
But they're so good. All right. Good. So do you have collard greens with your Thanksgiving dinner? If not, what's your greens?
We have usually green beans or broccoli. So
okay, you're missing out, folks. Collard greens are just.
Collard greens. You got to be south of what's the line, I guess.
The Mason-Dixon line?
The Mason-Dixon line?
Yeah. Yeah. Is that what it is? I don't know. But I mean, that's what the line is, but I don't know if that's the rule for collard greens. They're so flipping good. You should have some. They're great. You know what? If they would keep, I'll have to ask my mom. She's 82. She's been making collard greens forever. I'll say, can they keep?
I'm sure she's got them down, Pat.
Yeah. And I'll ask her if there's a way they'll keep, I will send you some. And that way you guys can have some collard greens. Yeah, they're definitely better when they're fresh, right? So, but I mean, we could probably freeze them. You'd be all right. I mean, you can buy them frozen nowadays anyway. So, I guess it would work. All right. So anyway, balance, right? Balance is the key.
Having balance, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Number 7, check beneficiary designation. This is an easy one. So again, small steps that can make for big wins. I mean, come on. We talked about this ad nauseum, really. It's like, just fix some of this stuff. It's just not that complicated.
It's something that needs to be looked at every year, right? At a minimum, just a cursory review to say, okay, what are my designations on the accounts? I mean, the reality is you should do that, but you should also be keeping in mind that if something happens, right, there's the birth or death of individuals in your family. Yeah. Does that affect anything? Right.
You got some new grandkids on the way, right? You might want to change that.
On the way. That's right.
Right.
So, yep. Yeah.
You may want to update that, right?
Yeah. So that's a great time to look at beneficiary designations and see, does that cause you to make any changes, or do you need to make any changes to beneficiaries on your accounts? So
yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that one. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You got a new addition to the family. Somebody's getting married. Somebody's getting divorced. Somebody passed away. Well, do it before they pass away in case there's a problem. But definitely, just fix them, right? It's just an easy thing to do. And don't forget, it's not just like your life insurance, but don't just update your life insurance policy. That one we talk about often too, because it's funny how many people go, oh no, I changed the name for my beneficiary for my life insurance. Okay. Did you change it on your 401?
And your IRA, your 401k, your Roth. I mean, it's all the different accounts.
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, the thing that I think people often overlook is like, well, yeah, but I've taken care of that. My will or my trust, right? That governs it. It's like, well, no, it doesn't. Sorry. I mean, your beneficiary designation, that form overrides everything.
Yep.
So whatever you state on there, it is going to be what happens. And if it's the wrong person, it's not going to change. Unfortunately, there's many, many, many court cases out there that show, nope, sorry that you left your ex-wife on the 401k. You should have changed it. She gets it. Sorry.
Yeah. In the modern world, Phil, I wonder, does that hold any weight? Like if you're on video, reading your own will and testament, and you're like, I want this to happen, and you're saying it from your face and so on and so forth. Does it make a difference? Probably still doesn't, does it?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I'm not an attorney, so that'd be a great question for an attorney, but I don't think it does, because it's in kind of ordering of what happens.
Yeah.
Ownership is first, right? So however an account's owned, joint ownership, it automatically transfers to that joint owner. Next one down the line is beneficiary designations. If there is a beneficiary on that account, then it goes to the beneficiary. Ultimately, if there is no beneficiary, then it falls into, if you don't have those items in your estate, which there's the will and probate and all that, or a trust, which trust usually kind of goes to the top as ownership, or a beneficiary is usually where the trust fits in. But I mean, that's a good point with that too, right? I've got this trust. Well, that's great. Did you actually name it as a beneficiary? Did you actually put it on the account? Because you can have a trust, and if it's not funded, it just is a piece of paper that's going to do nothing. So it doesn't matter what your intentions were.
Yeah, great point.
Take that next step and actually implementing it. So
well, any attorneys out there that are checking this out, send us a message. We'd be curious to know. I'd be curious to know, in the modern world, does, some court of, well, I mean, the video's been around a long time, but but is some sort of, visual and audio confirmation, does that help with the argument of forgetting to change the update the BDs? Although again, you could just solve that problem by just updating them. It's not that hard.
Update them, right? Have a look at them once a year. Say, hey,
I wonder, that could be the court's ruling. Again, we have no idea. We're not attorneys, but they'd be like, look, just sign the thing. You didn't sign it. Too bad, right?
Yeah,
it is what it
that's
is.
right.
So
you had your opportunity.
Yeah. All right. So number 8, rebalancing the old portfolio. So, I mean, this is an end of the year thing. This is a beginning of the year thing, whatever the case might be, but take a look, like how much risk are you taking right now? And do you want to be taking that much risk?
Well,
and that's the point. Reviews. That's why you guys do reviews, right?
Yeah. Rebalance really comes down to a strategy, right? Don't wait for an event to rebalance, right? Because then you're now it's emotions, right? Oh, market's crazy, I'm going to rebalance, No, that's probably the wrong thing to do. Have a strategy around rebalance. Is it once a quarter? Is it every 6 months? Once a year? Is it once things get out of tolerance? So do you have 20% in this large cap growth? Then you've got tolerances of like a 2% around that. So once it shifts, then you make. I mean, there's a lot of strategies around rebalancing, but the point is have something in place to rebalance. The challenge here, and I've met with a lot of clients that they started with a company 20 years ago and they picked, here's the 5 different investments that I put my fund in, 20%,
and they're still there,
and they're still there. But now that small cap piece of it, because that's performed way better than all the others, was 20% to begin with, but now it's 50%. Right. So they've got way more risk than what, quote unquote, they thought of way back when they started, because they've never looked at it. Right. So make sure you have an understanding of what that rebalance looks like. What's your strategy, and have some plan in place to make it happen. So
Phil, the automation of this, and nowadays so many of these things are automated. How accurate or good are they is it a useful tool for a lot of this automation?
Yeah, I mean, we use rebalancing in our portfolios just to let us know, are we at a tolerance, and then it's an actual act. We've got to physically rebalance it to actually implement it. So it's an automation as far as letting us know, hey, you're out of tolerance, but it's not going to just do it without you understanding, hey, this is the pro and con. Because I mean, that's the other side of it too, is you don't want it to just blank rebalance, especially if it's a taxable investment, because now what's the tax ramifications of that?
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, if you got an investment in there that is, 11 months, and 30 days old, so you've got 2 or 3 more days, and it would have been long-term, but now you rebalanced and sold this gain at short-term. Well, instead of paying 15% long-term capital gains, you paid, 22, 24, 32%, whatever your ordinary income is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So waiting a few days, it could have saved you pretty significant in taxes. So
good point.
Have a strategy to analyze it, but then I would say understand what that rebalance is, especially as it comes into taxable investments. So
yeah. I feel like maybe we kind of got a little redundant on this one here. I don't know why we have it back on here as number 9, but are you underestimating your proper emergency fund balance? We kind of started with cash.
Yeah, cash. Cash kind of fits into that. I think that
it kind of fits into that. Yeah.
With the high interest rates today, people are maybe more comfortable having cash, but it kind of fits in. We talked about emergency fund there. So,
but we did kind of dip into that a little bit. So I won't spend too much time on it. We'll just revisit it since it was on the prior episode, but it was just, basically to your point though, what we talked about on the other was that for a lot of folks that are in retirement, maybe we'll just kind of focus it on that angle for a second. If you're already into retirement, that whole, how much cash should I have for, 3 6 months, not, kind of thing, 9 months, whatever, is not really the same argument anymore, because you don't have a job, right? You are
lost
retired.
Your job. You hopefully have an income plan at this point to know where your income's coming from. And that, hopefully you're not getting laid off from that, right? Meaning you ran out of money, because that's a whole nother problem.
Right. Unless your wife kicked you out and said you're
that's a whole other scenario.
That's a whole other scenario. Go back to work. You're driving me nuts in the house. Yep. But the emergency fund side, like it in retirement, it truly is an emergency fund, right? So just making sure that you're having some there. And of course your advisor can kind of talk me through with what's a good number, so that you're not losing purchasing power, right? That's the big key. Okay.
No matter what the interest rates are, it never keeps up with inflation. And it's hard to get over that. I can get 5% in the bank today. Well, that's great, but inflation's been, 7-8% plus. I mean, it's never going to keep up with it. It doesn't matter.
I think they're back to saying at the time we're doing this, I think they're back to claiming it's 4 or 4.5. Everyone knows that's BS. If you go out and try to buy just about anything, it's still BS.
Oh yeah.
We've talked about that before. The way that the numbers are put together, they can manipulate that stuff all day long. Like I talked about on a previous episode, price of turkey, $60 for turkeys. There is no way that's 4%.
No,
So,
not at all. Yeah.
More like 40%. So
Yeah,
I mean,
it affects different segments and,
in different ways.
Everyone has a different inflation rate. And I think that's often where people kind of getting off on a tangent. People,
no, you're fine. Yeah.
Look at this. Oh, they said inflation's only 4%. Well, okay. So if you do a lot of driving, your inflation rate's probably a lot higher because fuel has been way above that. Right. Or, so what's going to happen in the winter if you're in a colder climate and you have these heating bills? I mean, your inflation's different than the average, right?
I mean, if we're off on that tangent, Phil, it's part of the political process at this point. I mean, right. and not even just the current one. Don't send me any crap, folks. Yeah. It's been this way a long time. It's manipulated to allow them to do whatever they need to say. Hey, look,
right.
the economy is going in the right direction, or whatever the case is. They can fudge that around a little bit because of just all the stuff that they put in the CPI, and there's multiple CPI indexes, and it's kooky, yeah. Right? There's a difference in what they claim and what we all know when we go out to, and do things and with our wallet. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good place to start, right?
It's a starting point.
Inflation is, but then look at your own purchasing, look at, I mean, you're in retirement. Things are probably pretty consistent. What you spent, this month last year, and you probably have similar expenses. So what happened? Is it up?
Right,
is it down?
Right. Exactly.
Average it over 2, 3, 4 months, your springtime, your winter, your fall, just to get a better idea. I mean, the reality is, most people are experiencing a higher level than what is out there. So
is what's claimed.
With that in mind, it kind of a long way around getting back to cash, but cash historically never is going to keep up with inflation. That is not the goal. That's not the intention. It is a safety net. It's an emergency fund.
Exactly.
Just don't get caught into that, grind of, I'm going to keep putting money in the bank today because it's giving me X amount, because that's great. What's your strategy to get out? Right. And then now you've waited and you missed, an uptick in the market if it's money that should have been more kind of that long-term investment type money. And now you're truly behind and you didn't keep up with inflation. So don't let that, that enticement of the bank interest rate that you can get today take you off course. Your strategy should be your strategy. Have in that emergency fund what you're comfortable with, what you need, and no more and no less. But unless you've got some very specific spending in place, or plans to make. But anyway.
Well, let's finish off with number 10, and it's back to automation again. And it's actually with the savings as well. So automate your savings. This, again, if the concept of our conversation, even though we deviate sometimes, is the small steps that could be big wins. How useful is automating your savings? So
it's huge.
Working, and you're still working, you're 50 plus, you're still, dollar cost averaging, throwing some money in there. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you've already maxed out the 401ks or, your other investments and you still have some surplus, I mean, at the end of the day, if the surplus is left in the bank, it's going to find its way to be spent, right? Because it's just what we do. But automate it, start to say, okay, hey, I've got an extra $500 a month. Let's just set this automatic draft to go into my savings account or an investment account on a monthly or paycheck basis, whatever it is. And just like when you started saving for your, in your 401k, it might hurt in the beginning. It's like, oh, where'd that money go? But, as you get used to this and as part of your spending pattern, you just don't realize it's gone. And
you kind of just, you don't feel it.
This X amount of dollars, So, I mean, that's on the savings side. The automation to me, though, on the retirement side should be the same for spending, right? As you get into retirement, and we work with all our clients on this, is setting up that spending plan. How much do you need? What do you need on a monthly basis? Let's get a regular monthly deposit going into your account from whatever the investment it is that's going to generate that, kind of like a paycheck, because it's the same thing. Now, okay, this is how much I have per month, that you're in this pattern, just like you're used to all these years,
right.
Versus not doing that. And it's kind of the ups and the downs, and, I have to call my advisor because I need an extra $5,000 and $10,000. I mean, it's all over the place, and there's no strategy around how you're going to generate that. And you might be overspending because you don't have this set rhythm of, this is what we're planning on spending. So
I gotcha. Oh yeah. And that's probably what happened. Why I have, if you're watching on video, I have 14 guitars scattered around the room by me.
That's right. See, if you had an automated,
I did not automate.
Look,
I
I've
did
got
not
some extra
automate.
money in the account. I think I'm going to go. I've been watching this guitar.
Yeah, that's right. There's another one. Yeah. I know it was my brother comes down and he goes, I got a question for you. I said, sure. And he's like, how many do you need? And I was like, okay. And he's
How many
like, and how
fingers
many
do you have?
and how many do you actually play? You know, and I was like, well, I actually use them all. So it's just there's different things for different ones. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, just like anything, right? So if we're thinking about getting towards retirement, there's the things that we're going to want, you know, there's the things that the goals and the wishes and the hopes and all that kind of stuff. But it's not a bad idea to automate some things. That way you do kind of stay within that line, especially nowadays when it is such a nickel and dime world, right? I mean, everything is, you know, it's a streaming fee, this, and it's a reoccurring fee, that, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's certainly easy. It's not a bad thought for sure. And that's why, again, we wanted to touch on 10 items over the last couple of podcasts that could maybe be some easy things to tweak that could provide some big wins. So that's our show. That's our podcast for the last 2 weeks coming into Thanksgiving. Phil, I hope you guys have a fantastic time with family. I hope all of our viewers and listeners have a great Thanksgiving. And you and I'll be back next week. We'll figure out a way to talk on Tuesday when we're bloated.
That's right. That's right.
We're still carrying on.
Sit back a little bit.
4 days later, we're still bloated from all the Thanksgiving feast.
I haven't eaten in 2 days.
I know, but it's good stuff.
Off the turkey.
That's right. Exactly. All right, folks. Well, have yourself a great one. We'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, which I guess Google's merging everything into. I've got to figure out what I'm going to say on that in the future because they've keep moving it around. But yeah, just don't forget to hit that heart or follow button, whatever it is. And of course, share the podcast and the video with folks who might benefit from the message as well. Folks who, you know, need to get themselves a professional on their side or start thinking about some things for their own retirement, especially if you're 50 plus, right? That's when we start to really the light bulb kicks on that, all right, maybe I better get serious about this.
Starts to become a little bit closer, right?
A little bit closer, yeah.
It's coming quick, so.
Gets a little more, just like Christmas. Christmas is now coming. Thanksgiving will be here like this, and then Christmas will be here. And so...
You'll be celebrating New Year's before you know it. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, take some action for yourself and your retirement, folks. Reach out to Phil if you need some help. philstaxhacks.com. That's philstaxhacks.com. And we'll see you next time on Phil's Tax Hacks, Other Retirement Facts.
Phil? Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.